Edgar Cayce was no ordinary man. Born in 1877 in Kentucky, he became known as the Sleeping Prophet for his ability to enter a deep trance and, in that state, reveal medical diagnoses, foresee future events, and decode spiritual mysteries that surpass the limits of science and religion. Throughout his life, Cayce conducted more than 14,000 readings, many of which were recorded and archived by the Association for Research and Enlightenment, AR, which he founded in 1931. But among all these revelations, one remains shrouded in silence, forgotten by many, ignored by some, and feared by a few: the prophecy concerning September 7th, 2025. This date, though not explicitly mentioned in his most popular readings, appears in less accessible documents and transcripts that only came to light decades later, when researchers began cross-referencing information, dates, and vibrational patterns. According to these studies, Cayce spoke of a day of rupture, a moment when the plates of the earth would shift and the heavens would fall silent. He did not name the day directly, but left clues, astrological alignments, vibrational codes, and references to events that, when connected, point to September 7th, 2025 as a prophetic milestone. Most people know Cayce for his predictions about Atlantis, World War II, climate changes, and the spiritual transformation of humanity. But few are aware that he also spoke about Brazil, South America, and a point of light that would emerge in the midst of darkness. It is precisely in this region that the forgotten prophecy gained significance. September 7th, besides being Brazil's Independence Day, carries symbolic weight that, according to Cayce interpreters, is tied to a spiritual cycle concluding in 2025, a cycle that began with the fall of empires, passed to the rise of ideologies, and culminates in a collective choice between awakening or collapse. Cayce spoke of times when men would be called to choose between spirit and matter. He said, the earth would respond to human choices, and the heavens would signal those who knew how to look. Today, observing global events, pandemics, wars, economic crises, natural disasters, it is impossible not to feel that something is approaching, something that cannot be explained merely by logic or science, something that vibrates in the invisible field but manifests in concrete reality. In this context, September 7, 2025 becomes more than a date. It becomes a portal. According to the latest studies, Cayce mentioned that when the sun is in Virgo and the moon in Aquarius, the veil will be torn. This rare and powerful astrological configuration occurs precisely in September 2025. Spiritual astrologers understand that these signs symbolize purification and revelation. Virgo represents cleansing, order, and truth. Aquarius represents collectivity, innovation, and rupture. Together, they form an axis that, according to Cayce, activates a frequency capable of exposing everything hidden, both in the world and in the human soul. But why was this prophecy forgotten? Why is it absent from books, documentaries, and lectures? The answer may lie in the content of the revelation itself. Cayce said, some truths can only be revealed when men are ready. Perhaps, in his spiritual wisdom, he left clues that can only now be understood. The world of 2025 is very different from the world of 1945, when Cayce passed away. Technology has advanced, yet spirituality has declined. Information has multiplied, yet wisdom has been lost. Now, facing an imminent tipping point, the forgotten prophecy begins to emerge, not as a threat, but as a warning. September 7th, 2025, according to the boldest interpreters, will be a day of choice. A day when frequencies are activated, invisible structures are shaken, and every human being is called to look inward. Cayce spoke of the great night of the soul, a moment when the world might appear to collapse, but which in truth marks the beginning of a new era. This night, according to vibrational calculations, begins precisely on this day, not with explosions, but with silence, not with destruction, but with revelation. The forgotten prophecy is not about an end, but about a transition. Cayce said, the world will not end, but it will be transformed. And this transformation begins with awakening, with the courage to face truth, even when it hurts, with the willingness to abandon the old, even when it feels comfortable, with the faith that something greater guides everything, even when all seems lost. Perhaps By remembering this prophecy, we can understand that the time of choice has arrived, and that September 7th, 2025, will mark this choice, not only for Brazil, but for the entire world. The signs of awakening and the echo of the invisible plates. Since the early years of the 21st century, the world has begun to show signs that something is out of balance. Edgar Cayce, in his most enigmatic readings, spoke of the dance of the invisible plates, a metaphor many interpreted as referring to tectonic plates, but which, on deeper levels, seem to point to subtle structures, energies, frequencies, and vibrational fields that sustain reality as we know it. He said, "When men ignore the signs of the earth will speak with force." And that is exactly what has been happening. Earthquakes in previously stable regions, dormant volcanoes awakening, unprecedented storm patterns, and a collective sense that time is accelerating, as if the cosmic clock were racing towards something inevitable. Cayce did not speak only of physical catastrophes. He warned of changes in the mental and emotional field of humanity. There will come a time when thoughts will travel faster than light, and feelings will be denser than matter. This phrase, recorded in a 1934 reading, seemed absurd at the time, but today, with the rise of artificial intelligence, instant communication, and emotional polarization, it reads as a precise description of our present. People are connected as never before, yet more fragmented. Information circulates at vertiginous speeds, yet wisdom seems increasingly scarce. In this scenario, the signs Cayce predicted begin to align, not as coincidence, but as a pattern. One of the most intriguing signs is the so-called spiritual ring of fire, a term Cayce used to describe an energetic belt that would cross the planet, activating centers of consciousness in specific locations. According to him, this belt would pass through regions such as Southern Asia, Northern Africa, and South America, especially Brazil. He said, "When the heart of the earth beats in Brazil, the eyes of the world will turn south." This phrase, forgotten for decades, gained new meaning when researchers noticed that Brazil has been a stage for spiritual, social, and political events that resonate with this pulse. And September 7th, with its symbolic weight of independence, seems to be the point of convergence for this energy. Another sign mentioned by Cayce is the silence of the heavens. He said, "Before the Great Awakening, the heavens will fall silent, and men will hear only the echo of themselves." This poetic image has been interpreted as a reference to spiritual disconnection, a moment when people feel abandoned, without answers, without direction. And many report exactly this, a sense of emptiness, an endless search, questions that find no echo. But Cayce warned that this silence is not absence, but preparation. Silence precedes the purest sound, he said, and that sound, according to his readings, would come as an inner calling, a frequency only the awakened hearts could hear. Climatic events are also part of the signs. Cayce spoke of the waters that will invade the earth and the fire that will arise from the heavens. Many associated this with tsunamis and meteors, but others see it as a metaphor for emotions and ideas. Water, as a symbol of the collective unconscious, invading rigid structures. Fire, as a symbol of inspiration, burning the old to make way for the new. And that is exactly what has been happening. Social movements, cultural revolutions, collapses of old systems. Everything seems to be boiling, as if the world is being prepared for something greater, something Cayce called a great revelation. This revelation, according to him, would not come from outside, but from within. The eyes will see what the heart allows, he said. And this brings us to the deepest aspect of the prophecy, the activation of consciousness. Cayce believed that every human carries a spiritual code, a divine spark, which, when activated, transforms not only the individual, but the collective. And he said, on a day marked by time, many will awaken simultaneously. That day, according to astrological and vibrational calculations, is September 7th, 2025, a day when cosmic alignments, earth frequencies, and human choices converge to create an opening, a portal between the old and the new. But this opening will not be visible to ordinary eyes. Cayce warned, the signs will be subtle, and those who sleep will not see them. He spoke of vivid dreams, synchronistic events, and unexpected encounters that would reveal hidden truths. And many are already experiencing this. People report dreams with ancient symbols, lights, and voices seemingly from another dimension. Others speak of encounters with strangers who utter enigmatic phrases, as if messengers. And some notice repeating numbers and recurring patterns, as if the universe is trying to call attention. All of this, according to Cayce, are signs of awakening, a signal that the day is near. Most impressively, Cayce said, time will fold and space will be torn. This phrase, which sounds like science fiction, has been interpreted by quantum physicists as a possible reference to changes in temporal and spatial perception. And many report exactly this. Days that seem to pass in minutes, memories emerging out of nowhere, intense déjà vu. It is as if reality is unraveling, revealing hidden layers. And all of this points to the same moment, the day when the veil will be lifted. September 7th, 2025, will not be just a day on the calendar. It will be a turning point. Cayce said, those who are ready will see. Those who are not will resist. This resistance may manifest as fear, denial, or chaos. But he also said, light does not fight darkness. It simply shines. And that is what is expected. On that day, the light will shine with strength, revealing what was hidden, awakening what was dormant, and beginning a new stage in humanity's journey. Brazil as the spiritual heart of the world and the call of South America. Edgar Cayce, in his most enigmatic readings, mentioned that the new world will arise from the south, where the heart of the earth pulses with light. For decades, this phrase was interpreted as a generic reference to South America, but over the years, scholars began to perceive that Cayce was pointing to something more specific. Brazil, not merely as a geographical territory, but as a vibrational center, a point of spiritual convergence. And in this context, September 7, 2025, gains an even deeper dimension, not only as a prophetic date, but as the activation of a hidden role Brazil has carried for centuries. According to Cayce, the peoples of the South will preserve forgotten wisdom, and when the North loses its way, the South will remember. This statement, made in a 1938 reading, seemed vague at the time, but today, in the face of collapse of traditional systems, the crisis of values in the Northern Hemisphere, and the search for authentic spirituality, it sounds like a call. Brazil, with its cultural diversity, its blend of races, beliefs, and rhythms, represents a living synthesis of humanity. And Cayce saw this as a sign that, when the time of transition arrived, Brazil would be one of the epicenters of change, not through force, but through vibration. September 7th, besides being the date of Brazil's political independence, carries a hidden symbolism that Cayce would have recognized. He said, true freedom will not come through weapons, but through consciousness. And this consciousness, according to him, would begin to expand when Brazil completed a 200-year cycle of independence. In 2022, the country celebrated this milestone, but Cayce warned that the cycle does not end in celebration, but in choice. And this choice, according to the boldest interpreters, happens in 2025, 3 years after the bicentennial, when cosmic alignments and earthly events converge at a point of activation. But what does this hidden role of Brazil mean? Cayce spoke of the land where the crystals sleep and the rivers sing. Many associated this with the Amazon, the Cerrado, the mountains of Minas Gerais, where there are records of intense electromagnetic fields, rock formations with unique vibrational properties, and spiritual communities that preserve ancestral knowledge. He said, the guardians of the light will not be in temples, but in forests. And today, with environmental destruction advancing, with deforestation and rampant exploitation, this warning sounds like prophecy. Brazil, according to Cayce, holds not only natural resources, but spiritual codes, frequencies that, when activated, can influence a planet's vibrational field. There is also the connection to ancient cultures. Cayce spoke of the children of Atlantis who crossed the sea and sowed wisdom in the south. This statement, from a reading about lost civilizations, points to a possible migration of Atlantean peoples to South America, especially regions like Brazil, Peru, and Bolivia. Archaeological evidence supports this hypothesis. Megalithic structures, symbols similar to those found in other parts of the world, and indigenous legends speaking of men of light who came from the sea. Cayce believed these peoples left vibrational records, not just physical but energetic, that would be activated at a specific moment in history. And that moment, according to calculations, is 2025. Most impressively, Cayce said, the awakening will come when the drum of the South beats. This poetic image was interpreted as a reference to music vibration, sound as a tool of activation, and Brazil, with its unique musical tradition, blending rhythms from Africa, Europe, and the Americas, represents exactly this, a spiritual drum that beats in the heart of the world. Some say that on September 7th, 2025, there will be a sonic synchronicity, a collective vibration that will be felt by many, even without knowing why, as if the entire country were playing an invisible note, capable of resonating in the subtle field of humanity. Cayce also spoke of the messengers of the South who will not know they are messengers. This enigmatic phrase points to ordinary people, Brazilians who unknowingly carry spiritual codes, hidden gifts, silent missions. He said, the call will not come through words, but through sensation. And many are already feeling this, a restlessness, a desire to change, to seek something greater, to reconnect with essence. It is as if Brazil is slowly awakening, like a spiritual giant beginning to move, not with violence, but with light. Brazil's role, according to Cayce, is not to dominate, but to inspire. The South will teach by example, not by imposition. And this example begins with individual choices, caring for the land, respecting diversity, seeking inner truth. He said, when the people of the heart rise, the walls will fall. And these people of the heart, according to his readings, are here, in communities, in peripheries, in urban centers, among indigenous peoples, the questioning youth, the elders who remember. All are part of a vibrational field that, when activated, can transform not only the country, but the world. September 7th, 2025, then, is not merely a prophetic milestone. It is a call, a moment in which Brazil will be invited to remember who it is, what it carries, and what it can offer. Cayce said, the light of the South will be seen by distant eyes. And perhaps, on that day, the world will look to Brazil not as an economic power, but as a spiritual beacon. And those who are attentive will feel, not with their eyes, but with their hearts, that something has changed, that the drum has sounded, that the crystal has awakened, that the veil has been, the veil of fear and the invisible war of consciousness. Edgar Cayce always warned that the greatest obstacle to awakening would not be ignorance, but fear. Fear is the veil that covers the eyes of the soul, he said in a 1932 reading. This seemingly simple phrase carries a depth that becomes strikingly clear as we approach September 7th, 2025. Because, according to Cayce, this day will not only mark a spiritual milestone, but also the beginning of an invisible war. Not between nations, but between frequencies. A silent battle between the old and the new, between ego and spirit, between fear and truth. Resistance to prophecy begins long before the event itself. Cayce said, signs will be given, but many will reject them for fear of what they mean. And this is exactly what has been happening. Climate change, economic collapses, social conflicts, all seem to scream that something is out of balance. But instead of looking inward, many look outward, seeking scapegoats, creating enemies, fueling narratives that reinforce separation. Cayce warned, when men divide, the earth will split. This division is now visible at all levels, political, religious, emotional, spiritual. Fear, according to Cayce, is a dense frequency that blocks connection to the higher field. He said, those who vibrate in fear will not hear the call. And this call, which intensifies as we approach September 2025, is not made with words, but with vibration. It is an internal sensation, a restlessness, a desire to change, to seek something beyond the material. But fear blocks this perception. It creates noise, confusion, distraction. Cayce warned, those who are distracted by the world will miss the moment. Because this moment, he said, will be brief, subtle, yet transformative. Internal conflicts also play a role. Cayce said, the most dangerous war will be within man. And this war has already begun. People face existential crises, deep depressions, inexplicable anxieties. It is as if the collective unconscious is being stirred, as if old pains are resurfacing to be healed. Cayce warned, before the light comes, the shadow will arrive. This shadow, which many are confronting, is not punishment, but preparation. It is a process of cleansing, purification, and release. But for those who do not understand, it appears as chaos. And fear transforms this chaos into despair. External conflicts are also part of the resistance. Cayce spoke of the war of mirrors, a metaphor for conflicts reflecting what lies within. He said, countries will fight for power, but true power is in consciousness. Today, we see exactly that: geopolitical disputes, ideological tensions, extreme polarization. All of this, according to Cayce, reflects humanity's internal battle. He warned, when men try to control the world will liberate itself. This liberation, he said, will occur through events that challenge all structures, physical, mental, and spiritual. September 7th, 2025 will be a test. Cayce said, those who resist the light will feel pain, but those who open themselves will be healed. This healing will not be magical or immediate, but it will mark the beginning of a new journey. Those prepared will feel a lightness, clarity, and connection. But those trapped in fear, anger, and denial will feel the opposite: confusion, pain, collapse. Cayce did not speak as a threat, but as a warning. The choice will be made in silence, in the heart of each one. There is also the danger of manipulation. Cayce warned, those who fear the truth will try to hide it. Today, we see this at all levels: censorship, disinformation, distraction. The system seems designed to keep people busy, disconnected, anesthetized. Cayce said, those who control the world fear the awakening, because this awakening cannot be controlled. It is internal, spontaneous, unpredictable. When it occurs, it transforms everything. Cayce warned, those who awaken will see the world with new eyes. And these eyes will see beyond appearances, beyond narratives, beyond fear. But there is hope. Cayce said, light is stronger than shadow, and love dissolves fear. And this love, according to him, will be the key to crossing the 2025 portal. Not romantic love, nor conditional love, but universal love. The frequency that connects all, heals all, reveals all. He said, those who love, even without understanding, will be guided. This guidance will come through synchronicities, encounters, dreams, and intuitions. It is as if the universe is silently preparing each person for the moment of choice. Brazil, in this context, has a crucial role. Cayce said, the heart of the world will beat stronger when fear is dissolved. And this heart, he said, is here, in the forest, the rivers, the people. Brazil carries a unique vibration, a mixture of joy, pain, faith, and resilience. Cayce saw this as a sign that when the world is on the brink of collapse, Brazil could offer a new vision, not based on power, but on connection. And this vision begins with each individual, with each choice, with every act of courage in the face of fear. September 7th, 2025 will be a mirror. Cayce said, the world will reflect what each one carries. And this reflection will be intense. Those who carry light will see light. Those who carry shadow will see shadow. But all will have the chance to choose. Because, according to Cayce, the truth will be revealed, and those who wish may see. And this revelation will not be an external event, but an internal opening, a moment of expansion, a remembrance. And perhaps, as we cross this portal, we will finally understand that fear is not the enemy. It is merely the last guardian before the light. Dreams, visions, and the invisible call of the soul. Edgar Cayce always affirmed that dreams are the language of the soul. When the body sleeps, the spirit speaks, he said in a 1935 reading. For Cayce, dreams were not merely reflections of the unconscious, but coded messages from higher planes, spiritual guidance that, when understood, could transform lives. And as the world approaches September 7th, 2025, dreams have become increasingly intense, symbolic, and revealing. People from all over the globe report vivid dream experiences, encounters with luminous beings, visions of unknown landscapes, and sensations of being prepared for something greater. Cayce foresaw this. He said, before the great day, those who are open will receive instructions during sleep. These instructions, he noted, would not be direct, but symbolic. The spirit speaks in images, not words, he stated. And these images, spirals, portals, animals, lights, numbers, carry profound meanings. One of the most recurring symbols in Cayce's readings is the number 7. He said, 7 is a number of spiritual perfection, the complete cycle, the point of transition. And not by coincidence, the prophetic date is September 7th. Many have dreamt of this number, of clocks striking 7, 7 stars, 7 doors. It is as if the universe is signaling that the cycle is about to be completed. Beyond dreams, Cayce spoke of visions, altered states of consciousness in which the individual accesses parallel realities, subtle dimensions, and vibrational fields normally hidden. He said, the veils between worlds will become thin, and those who are ready will see beyond. And this is already happening. People report near-death experiences, deep meditations, ecstatic states in which they receive messages, sense presences, or access knowledge they have never studied. Cayce called this spiritual remembrance, an activation of ancestral memories that had been dormant. And these memories, he said, would be essential to crossing the 2025 portal. What is most fascinating is that Cayce said the signs will come from where they are least expected. And these signs have manifested in surprising ways. Children speaking of past lives, animals behaving unusually, natural phenomena with symbolic patterns, encounters with strangers who utter enigmatic phrases. It is as if the universe is conspiring to awaken those who are ready. Cayce warned, those who ignore the signs will miss the chance to remember. Because this moment is not only about external transformation, but about internal reconnection, with essence, mission, and purpose. There are also physical signs. Cayce said, the body will feel before the mind understands. Many have reported strange symptoms, palpitations, waves of heat, unexplained chills, changes in appetite, altered sleep patterns. Doctors often find no explanation, but those who study spirituality understand that the body is adjusting to new frequencies. Cayce spoke of the vibrational shift of the earth, a process in which the planet raises its frequency, and human bodies must adapt. This process, he said, would intensify in the months leading up to September 2025. Once again, Brazil appears as the epicenter of these signs. Cayce said, the dreams of the South will be clearer because the veil is thinner, and there are growing reports of Brazilians experiencing intense spiritual experiences, visions with ancient symbols, encounters with beings of light, and sensations of mission. It is as if the country is being spiritually activated, as if the guardians of prophecy are awakening. Cayce spoke of messengers who will not know they are messengers, and many of these messengers are here, living ordinary lives, yet sensing something extraordinary, a restlessness, an urgency, a remembrance that cannot be explained. These dreams and visions are not merely individual. Cayce said, the collective field will be activated, and those who are connected will feel together. And this is already occurring. People who have never met report similar dreams, visions with the same symbols, messages with the same words. It is as if an invisible web is being woven, connecting souls who share a common mission. Cayce called this the Fraternity of Light, a spiritual group that would gather energetically to sustain the transition. And this gathering, he said, will begin in 2025. But there are also false signs. Cayce warned, not all that shines is light. He said, those who fear the truth will create illusions to confuse. Today, with the avalanche of information, media manipulation, and superficial spirituality, it is easy to become lost. Cayce said, true signs will be simple yet profound. They will not come with spectacle, but with silence, not with promises, but with presence. And those who are connected will know, not with the mind, but with the heart. Because, he said, the heart will recognize what the mind doubts. September 7th, 2025, will therefore be a day of inner revelation. Cayce said, the veils will fall and those who dream will awaken. This awakening will not be the same for everyone. Some will feel peace, others will feel pain. Some will remember, others will resist. But all will be touched, because, he said, no one will be outside the field. And this field, this frequency, this vibration will be like an invisible wave that sweeps across the planet, activating memories, revealing truths, calling souls. And those who hear this call, even without understanding, we'll be ready. Perhaps by observing dreams, visions, and the subtle signs around us, we can realize that the prophecy is not about an ending. It is about a beginning, the beginning of a new way of seeing, feeling, and being. And Cayce, with his silent wisdom, left us the clues. It is up to us to decipher them, to remember, to choose. Children of light and the return of the silent ancestors. Edgar Cayce said, "The new times will not be announced by kings, but by children." This phrase, recorded in a 1941 reading, once seemed too poetic to be taken seriously. But today, as we approach September 7th, 2025, it resonates with unexpected force. Children around the world, especially in Brazil, have been exhibiting behaviors, perceptions, and sensitivities that defy conventional explanations. Some speak of past lives with remarkable detail. Others display empathy and wisdom far beyond their years. There are reports of children drawing ancient symbols, talking about stars, or dreaming of luminous beings. Cayce called these souls children of light and said they would come in waves, silent messengers preparing the world for transition. These children, according to Cayce, are not merely special. They are catalysts. They will carry in their eyes the reflection of the new world, he said. And this new world is not a distant utopia, but a frequency already manifesting. Cayce believed these souls came from ancient spiritual lineages, from civilizations that had already undergone similar processes of ascension and fall. He spoke of Atlantis, Lemuria, and peoples who mastered energy and consciousness, leaving vibrational records to be activated at the right moment. And that moment, according to him, is now. Brazil, once again, appears as the central stage for this manifestation. Cayce said, "The children of the South will have eyes that see beyond." Increasing reports confirm Brazilian youth exhibiting unusual gifts, spontaneous mediumship, healing abilities, and communication with subtle planes. Often, these children are misunderstood, diagnosed with disorders, medicated, silenced. But Cayce warned, those who attempt to silence the light will suffer in darkness. These souls did not come to adapt to the old world. They came to transform it. And that transformation begins with listening, recognition, and acceptance that something greater is happening. Beyond the children, Cayce spoke of the ancestors. Those who came before will return in spirit to guide those who are now. This phrase, recorded in a reading on reincarnation, points to a phenomenon many have felt, the presence of the ancient ones. People report dreams with deceased grandparents, ancestral indigenous figures, or historical personalities transmitting messages. Cayce said, "The spiritual lineage will be activated, and those who listen will remember." This remembrance is not intellectual, it is vibrational, a sense of belonging, mission, and continuity, as if each person is part of a larger story that is now being reclaimed. Indigenous peoples, particularly in Brazil, have long been the silent guardians of this lineage. Cayce said, "Those who live in communion with the earth hold the codes of truth." Today, faced with environmental destruction, loss of values, and spiritual disconnection, these peoples become even more relevant. They do not merely resist. They remember. They remember how to live in harmony, how to listen to nature, and how to honor the invisible. Cayce believed that, in the moment of transition, this knowledge would be essential. Those who could listen would learn. Wisdom will not come from books, but from the earth, he said. There are also signs of return. Cayce said, "Those who have departed will return in the form of wind, dream, or intuition." Many have experienced this. Sensations of déjà vu, guidance without knowing its source, messages arriving unexpectedly. It is as if the ancestors are whispering, preparing, guiding. Cayce spoke of the bridge between worlds, a vibrational field where the living and the departed meet. Not to mourn, but to continue. And this bridge, he said, would be activated in 2025, not with grand rituals, but with silence, presence, and listening. September 7th, 2025, will also be a day of reunion. Cayce said, "Those who open themselves will feel the presence of those who came before." This presence will be comforting, but also challenging. Ancestors do not come merely to console, they come to remind of what was forgotten, abandoned, or neglected, and those who are ready will feel it, a silent force, ancient wisdom, and a mission beginning to pulse in the heart. Children and ancestors together form the spiral of transition. Cayce said, "The new is born from the old, and the old is reborn in the new." And this spiral is manifesting now. Children carrying ancestral memories. Ancestors manifesting through children's dreams. It is as if time itself is folding, connecting past and future into a vibrant present. And this present is a portal. The portal opening in September 2025. A portal not in a place, but in a frequency. Those who access this frequency, even without understanding, will be ready. Perhaps, by looking into the eyes of a child or hearing the whisper of a dream, we can perceive that the prophecy is not about what will happen. It is about what is already happening. And Cayce, with his vision beyond time, left us the clues. It is up to us to follow them, to remember, to honor, the day after the veil and the beginning of the new frequency. September 7th, 2025, arrived like any other day, with the sun rising over the mountains, birds singing, clocks marking time as they always had. But for those who were attentive, something had changed. It was not a spectacular event. There were no explosions, no celestial apparitions. It was subtle, internal, vibrational. Edgar Cayce always said, "True change will not be seen but felt." And that is exactly what happened. A silent wave swept across the planet, activating fields, awakening memories, revealing truths. Those who were ready felt it. A lightness, a clarity, a connection that cannot be described with words. The prophecy was not about destruction, but about revelation. Cayce said, "The world will not end, but it will be unveiled." And in that unveiling, everything hidden began to emerge. Secrets kept for centuries, buried truths, repressed emotions, all surfaced, not as punishment, but as healing. Cayce affirmed, "Light reveals to heal, not condemn." And this light, which began to shine more intensely after the prophetic day, touched every corner of humanity. Systems began to show their flaws more clearly. Rigid structures started to break. Masks began to fall. And those resisting change began to feel the weight of their own denial. But those who chose truth, even without understanding, began to flourish. Cayce said, "Those who align with the new frequency will be like trees in spring." And the spiritual spring began to manifest. People started gathering spontaneously, guided by intuitions, dreams, and synchronicities. Communities formed, not by ideology, but by resonance. Those vibrating on the same frequency began to meet, recognize, and support each other. Cayce had already predicted this. The fraternity of light will gather without needing an invitation. Brazil, as he had announced, became an epicenter of this new vibration, not by decree nor political power, but by frequency. Joy, faith, resilience, diversity, all began to pulse more strongly, as if the country was finally remembering who it is. Cayce said, "The heart of the world will beat in the South, and those who hear this heartbeat will be transformed." And that heartbeat began to echo, not in newspapers, but in hearts, not in headlines, but in gatherings, not in promises, but in the silent actions of those choosing to live in truth. After September 7th, dreams intensified. Cayce said, "The veils will fall, and those who sleep will begin to awaken." And this awakening was not uniform. Some felt peace, others felt pain. Some remembered, others resisted, but all were touched, because, according to him, no one will be outside the field. And this field, this new frequency, began to reorganize everything. Relationships began to dissolve, not from conflict, but from misalignment. Jobs lost meaning. Routine seemed absurd. And those attentive realized the old world was dissolving. Cayce warned that the transition will be long, and those without patience will suffer. This new era does not begin with spectacle, but with process, a process of cleansing, rebuilding, and realigning. And this process requires courage. Courage to release what no longer serves. Courage to face what was hidden. Courage to live authentically. Cayce said, "Truth will be the new temple, and those who enter will be purified." And this purification began, not with rituals, but with choices. Daily simple, yet profound choices. Those resisting the new frequency feel confusion. Cayce said, "Those who try to maintain the old will suffer with the new. The new cannot be contained. It is like the wind, invisible yet irresistible. And those attempting to protect themselves with rigid structures, outdated beliefs, or fear are broken, not as punishment, but through incompatibility." Cayce affirmed, "The new earth rejects no one but demands truth." And this demand began to manifest. Those who lie, manipulate, or conceal started being exposed, not by judgment, but by vibration. Light reveals, and revelation is inevitable. Yet there is beauty in this process. Cayce said, "Chaos is a prelude to harmony." And harmony began to emerge. New ways of living began to appear. New ways of relating, working, learning, and creating. Everything began reorganizing around truth, connection, and presence. And those aligned with this began to flourish, not with fame or wealth, but with peace. A peace not dependent on circumstances, but on frequency. Cayce said, "Those who find inner peace will be the new leaders." And these leaders began to emerge, silent, humble, yet powerful. September 7th, 2025, was therefore not an end. It was a beginning, the beginning of a new era, a new vibration, a new humanity. Cayce said, "The world will be new, not because it has changed, but because the eyes that see it have changed." And these eyes began to open, slowly but surely. And those who opened them began to see the beauty, the truth, the connection. And this vision is the true miracle. Because, as Cayce said, to see with the heart is to remember who you are. And upon remembering, everything changes. Perhaps, looking back, we can perceive that the prophecy was not a warning. It was an invitation to awaken, to choose, to live in truth. And Cayce, with his wisdom beyond time, left us this invitation. It is up to us to accept it, to live the new, to be the light he saw.